Now I'm going to cover what managers should know about search engine advertising, and I'm going to explain four things. First, I'll explain why these campaigns take a lot of time to start up, but there's very little ongoing maintenance required. Second, I'll explain how weak competition leads to high profit. And third, I'll explain why Google and Bing sales reps are usually very helpful. And fourth, I'll explain why the ideal SEM manager, that's search engine marketing, synonymous with search engine advertising, is going to be an analytical kind of person. And I'll go into one of my AdWords accounts and show you what the day-to-day activities are like, and that'll help you better understand the kind of person that's going to excel in one of these roles. All right. So the vast majority of search engine advertising campaigns take a long time to set up and optimize, but they require very little maintenance. Google and Microsoft have invested billions of dollars into creating systems that are fairly cheap to run. They did a great job of it because when their systems are easy to use, more people will use them and they'll make more money. Here's an example. Joe starts running a campaign for petfood.com. In this example, he'll research more than 100 different keywords that are going to be a good fit for petfood.com. The words like dog food and cat food and more obscure things like dog food in Chicago or, I don't know, or organic albino cat food. He's going to find all the commonly understood terms and the ones that maybe not pop right in your mind, and that takes time. And then he has to think about how exactly he's going to structure the campaign, how he's going to set up the ad groups, which keywords are going to fall into which ad groups, and then he has to think about the pricing. Now, search advertising works on an auction model where the highest bidder gets the highest place. I mean, it doesn't exactly work like that, but I'm just making this very simple to explain to people who aren't very familiar with it. So let's just take that as truth. So Joe just needs to figure out what bid will result in the most profit for each keyword, and he'll use historical sales data to make an informed guess as to how much he should bid for each keyword. Then he'll test different bids until he finds the optimal one for each keyword. And in a few months, he'll find that optimal bid. And then at that point, there really isn't much. You've got your keywords, you've got your campaign structured, and you know what to bid. So you pretty much just need to check in on the campaign periodically and make sure nothing's going wrong and make tiny adjustments where needed. Now, occasionally, you do need to change your price because the intrinsic value of the click will change, but it doesn't happen very often. Usually, it happens due to seasonality, meaning let's say you're in the real estate business in Minnesota, and because it's 5 degrees outside during January, not a lot of people want to go see houses. So you just don't do a lot of business if you're selling real estate in Minnesota. Or there might, on rare instances, be a major change in the business. Say, for example, a big company comes in with a competing product that had never been there before, that will affect how much you can afford to pay for each keyword. So to give you more specific examples, I took over an AdWords account for a company called ForSaleBanner.com that spent about $1 million per year, and it took me about 2 weeks of full-time work to completely reconfigure it. And then I spent about 20 hours a week on it, just working on various parts of it for the following 4 weeks. And then after that, things are pretty much set up, and I might spend 5 hours a week or even less on the AdWords campaigns. That's really all it would take. And I saw pretty much the same thing happen at Monster.com. In our unit, we had a guy who was spending about $500,000 per month on search engines, but he still had several other duties because the accounts didn't take a lot of time to maintain once they were set up. And that's typical. I've been working at another of these companies. I have a lot of friends who've worked at companies that do search engine advertising, and it's normal that the employees who manage the search ads will frequently hold other responsibilities as well. So weak competition equals high profit. In business, companies that face lower competition usually have higher profit margins, and the same goes for search engine advertising. When I was at Monster.com, we were in a highly competitive field, and the return on our search ads wound up being around 25 or 35%. Now that means that for every dollar that was spent on search ads, we would make 25 to 35 cents of profit. Now at ForSaleBanner.com, we only had one serious competitor, and the returns on my campaigns were about 100 to 130% depending on the month. So that means that for every dollar I spent, I was making $1 to $1.30 in profit. Now, I wasn't just a better campaign manager than my coworker at Monster. It's just that when you have very little competition, You just simply don't have to pay as much for the clicks. Now, as a manager, there isn't much you can do to legally reduce the amount of competition you face, but you can make your business superior to your competitors. It's extremely hard to do, and you need excellence in many different capacities to accomplish it, but it can be done. I've seen a few examples of companies that were able to convert traffic into sales at much higher rates than the competition, and that allowed them to maintain high profit margins in fields that look competitive. And I'll cover some of those tactics in other videos. All right. So I've dealt with a lot of sales reps in the online space, and I think that Google's are by far the most helpful. For one thing, Google is known as being one of the most successful companies around, but the key that differentiates their sales reps is that their goals are better aligned with their customers' goals. With search spending, you have a very clear idea of how much money you're making as long as you have analytics software installed, which is standard practice. Every major company and even small companies have it these days. It's really cheap. It's free if you use Google Analytics. And because it's clear how effective your search ads are, the reps don't waste their time trying to persuade you to buy more. Instead, they come up with clear and insightful strategies that you can test and get a clear answer on whether or not they worked. Now, with some vendors I work with, their sales reps succeed often by being persuasive because the benefits of the product being sold are not crystal clear. For example, when you buy display advertising or you buy software, you usually can't say that purchase X led directly to Y dollars. But with search advertising, it's clear to everybody who looks at the data that purchase X led directly to Y dollars. So reps just focus on improving those numbers. They don't focus so much on just being persuasive. So really, I don't even consider search engine advertising sales jobs to really be sales jobs. It's more of a consulting job than a sales job. And I have some friends that work at Google on those jobs, and they're just not very salesy, but they're smart, analytical thinkers that are good at coming up with ideas. So the last piece here, the ideal SEM manager is going to be somebody that has kind of an analytical mind. Most of the work that a search engine advertising manager does is analytical in nature. Success is measured by increasing profit margins by a few percentage points or just cutting costs by a few percentage points. There isn't a whole lot of human interaction required in the job. It's about sitting in front of a computer and tweaking bidding strategies to make the campaigns work more efficiently. There's a small amount of human interaction required, and a lot of that is just writing effective ad copy, but that's a skill that can easily be learned by analytical people. So I wanted to point this out because the personality that is successful in search engine advertising is very different from the personality that is typically successful with traditional advertising. So in traditional advertising like TV, print, or radio ads, it's more dependent on creativity and appearance. And there's, as far as I can tell, little effort made to track the impact of those campaigns or the impact that they make on revenue and profitability. So analytical minds just aren't as highly valued as coming up with a catchy ad that kind of sticks in your mind, or an attractive jingle. It's a lot different than the work we do in search advertising. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up one of my AdWords campaigns. Here we go. Let me get this centered here. So this is a campaign I was running for a coupon site. So you can see some of my ad groups are like coupons, discounts, savings, personal shopper. I've got my max cost per click in this column. And then we've got the number of clicks I was getting, the click-through rate, the average cost per click that I was buying, the cost. This is obviously not a very big campaign. Then over here, this is actually the main column I want to point out to you is the cost per conversion. So in this row is for my coupons related keywords. I was getting a conversion for only spending $6.12 on average. So that's it really was pretty good actually. You can compare it down here to the keywords I was bidding on that were related to keywords like discounts, and it was a lot worse. I was getting only one conversion for every $26 I was spending. And then down here on the savings related keywords, I didn't even get any conversions. So This is just a really rudimentary example of what would happen. You would set up these campaigns, you would run them for just a little bit. This is like $1,000 worth of spend. It's enough to get you a really good idea of how well your keywords are performing, but it's not like you're spending a ton of money. Um, but you get an idea of what's effective. So clearly, my coupons related keywords that are clocking in at one conversion per $6 are a lot more effective than my discounts related keywords that are clocking in at $26 for one conversion. So then I can go in and look at the actual keywords and see which ones are driving the most conversions. I'll just do that here. I'm going to click on coupons. Let me scroll down. So on this is, I guess I don't want to throw out too many terms, but this is basically I'm bidding on the keyword coupons. And I said I'll spend as much as 35 cents per click. I got 525 clicks. It cost me $355, and the cost per conversion was $6.02. So I can go through down here. Here's a keyword. It's a little different that I had to spend $29.73 just to get one conversion. So clearly I don't want to spend much more of that keyword. I'd rather bid more on this other keyword that I was getting a conversion for only spending $5.01. So I'm not going to get too involved, but I think you get the idea. That's the kind of work that a search engine advertising manager will do.